That's great. If we all can put our names in the chat in order, and I think in Keybase we said we're going to all say our names and our organisation.
Sorry, Rob,
so if you do it for a good 2 seconds, everybody will come onto the call, and we will be able to, on the recording, everybody will be able to see who's on the call. So I think that was one of the comments, I won't say criticisms, but one was the comments that we got in the YouTube from last week. So if we can be doing that, that'd be cool. Thank you.
The stream's up now, so we're ready on that end.
Brilliant. Are we live streaming it, Rob?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. I didn't know we were doing that. I thought we were just recording, but live streaming as well. That's fabulous.
I figure if we're going to publish the recordings to YouTube, might as well do it all in one go.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Hello, everybody. Have we got any idea how many people are coming on today? No? If you just come on, if you could write your name in the chat for me, please. And we're going to read them all out quite soon. Just when we think we've got a consensus. I don't know how many we have before we decide to. I've got 21 at the minute before we make a start. Should we say we make a start at 04? Would that be right, or 03?
Yeah, I mean it's 8 o'clock, so let's get going. Time is valuable.
Okay then, that's fair enough. I think we need to make sure Douglas is on the call, as a lot of the stuff is riding with him to start with. But I'll go through to make a start. If everyone's okay with that, has everyone got the? I've got the agendas. If you haven't, they're posted on Keybase, etc., etc. So there is a hands up facility in Zoom. I don't know whether if we want to try that out today. I think if you if you go to participants and you can see like a hand up box, that'll give me a heads up to if anyone wants to come on the call, and then I can sort of be lining people up when Douglas is off on a full flow, just to sort of like give us a chance to cut in every now and again. Or if you unmute yourself, if everyone stays mute, or if you unmute yourself, I will know that you want to talk, and I can make sure that everybody gets their say as far as we can go. So welcome everybody. I'll start the call unless there's any objections. Okay. So point 1 on the agenda is any request to change the current admin roles. I'm nominally the chair. We've got Phil, who's scribing for us, and he's agreed to scribe today, and Rob sorting out the other bits and bobs. Unless anybody's got any objections, we'll carry on and roll that over to next week. And if we want to use the meeting channel to change those procedures at any time, then I think at the meeting channel in Keybase, I think it's better to discuss it there rather than take up valuable time doing it here. So I'm going to skip through to point 3 rather than point 2. Point 2 is roll call, but point 3 is just a quick spin over of what we agreed last week. I'm going to do that just so we get enough time for people to have written their name in the chat, so we can go down and everyone can say their name in a moment when we do the roll call. So I was just going to skip through the things that we said we were going to do last week, and if there isn't anything, if there's something that we've missed, if Bill can make a note of it, and we'll make sure that we address it next week, or we task someone to do it. So the first thing was write up and make changes to write up a statement about how the communities is going to give some input on the APB rewards, which I think we've done and covered. Update the white paper, that was point 2, which I think we've covered. Organise leadership roles in the different Telos work groups. I don't think we've done that completely, but I think Douglas has put a proposal forward in the groups to actually get chairs, etc., etc. And I think we're working towards that. So I'm going to say that's covered off. retire the private Telos Telegram channel. We haven't done that yet. I don't know what people think about retiring that group, whether people think we're going to do that or we're going to. Everyone seems quite happy to use Keybase rather than Telegram. So is there anybody objecting to us retiring that off or not?
I think we should do it.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in there. There is still a lot of conversation going on there, mostly for folks that aren't yet ready to jump into the launch group. But yeah, we need to know what's out there, and we need to control, what we can. So I vote to shut that down.
Anybody else got any objections? I mean, my feeling is that we, as a group, we commit to wherever we can using the Keybase group and communicate there. But we leave that channel open and just occasionally monitor it to see if anyone's missing out. But just if we all commit to using Keybase, then it will die a natural death anyway.
I feel similarly.
That
there.
specific group was designed to be a sort of an intermediate group so that everyone could participate. It's not an open channel. And so I think that, in my opinion, enough time has passed that people can either join or not join. They certainly know where to find us if they would like to. So I think it's just one more distraction, too many groups. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, another point.
Has a message been given out to the people that are in that group with that has been pinned so that they know that the chat is going to die, or has nothing been said to the people that are participating in that chat? I just want to make sure that we're not cutting it off before people really know what's going on.
Yeah, good call. It has been mentioned, but I don't think anybody's actually. I don't think we actually pinned one.
How about we pin a message with a link to the Keybase Telegram team, which anyone with a Keybase account can request an invite to, so that allows them to come if they want to and say, yeah, I want to join up. And then pin that message for a week and then retire it in a week. That way there's enough of a grace time.
Okay, that sounds fine. Let's just I'm going to press on with that unless anyone's got any objections. And if you have got an objection, we can. If you don't get your voice heard on here, I think if you write something in the Keybase channel on the meetings, if you feel that you didn't get your voice heard, then maybe we can sort of use that. But I think I'm going to move on now, and we're going to attempt to do this roll call, which is the idea of everyone saying their name from the top of the chat all the way through to get everybody on the call. I'm not sure whether this was Douglas's idea or whose idea it was, but it was one way of trying to take a roll call. So I think we're quite keen to have a go at this because it means everybody gets their face on the call as well, which I think for the recording is quite important. And if you've not got the video showing, I'm not quite sure how that'll work, but if you just say your name then, I guess, and your community. So I think we need to start with Joseph, please, if that's okay.
Yep. So it's Joseph from EOS Barcelona.
Hi, this is Jan from Ireland, also known EOS.
Peter from Good Block.
Justin from Infinity Launch.
Anders is next. Right, okay.
Jerry Huff from...
So I'm Roger Davis, EOS UK. You're supposed to be following the order in the chat, people, just a reminder.
Okay, that was me then. Sorry, Douglas Horn from Good Block.
James Davis from Good Block. Jerry Huff from Blind Block Art.
Looking
From EOS
Phil next. He was meant to be next on the list. Is Phil, are you there?
Yes. Phil from EOS Detroit.
JT Bice from EOS World.
Matt from EOS Van.
Ed, you up?
I'm sorry, Ed Silva from Good Block.
Rob Konsdorf from EOS Detroit.
Get in there.
Asher Corson, I'm a volunteer.
I don't know where I was on the list because I can't see it, but I'm CJ Andrew. I'm just a volunteer.
Thanks, CJ.
Hi, this is Azad Halim. I'm a volunteer too, representing the security working group on Telos Foundation.
Thank you.
This is Brandon Lovejoy of EOS Detroit, Director of Communications. I don't have video enabled only because my bandwidth is really bad here.
Okay, guys, is anybody not said who they are on the call yet?
From K2IO.
It's Kesh from EOS Green.
This is Jesse Schulman from Calios.
Okay, guys, I think I'm gonna call it there. I think that was. I think we'll get better as we go along, but I think that was pretty good for the first run through. So I think that's the best roll call I've seen on these sort of things. So let's keep going with that. So the next thing on the list is going to Douglas for the point 4, which is the Telos Weekly Report. If you could just give us a quick update on that, Douglas, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jim. It's been a great week for Telos. We have the test net has practically finished stage 1. We're really only pausing for stage 2 because there's a bug in the EOS software. It's not worth merging yet. The groups, big picture, and we'll go to each group in a moment. That's on the agenda, so I won't recap everything. But the groups have mostly have formed into working groups. Most of them have elected a chair, and also have had individual meetings. So we're working towards every group having individual meetings, having a chair, and then reporting back to the group. A big thing that's happened this week out of last week's meeting is that we have we moved to the system which had caused a lot of friction, which was changing our the old reward system into the new Telos Founders Rewards Pool, which has seemed to be very, very inclusive. We've got a lot of people coming on board. We've announced the open group. We've had a lot of people either joining or being interested in joining, and I think it's been very positive. And today there are 3 more Telos improvement protocols that we need to take some action on and review and hopefully vote on. But those will help finish out those that process. So beyond, it's been a great week. Things are going very well, and I think we can move on to the individual group reports for more detail.
Okay, thanks, Douglas. Obviously, thanks for doing the report and posting it all out onto the various channels. I think the more that we can do of getting the stuff out there on our social media channels, that's up to everyone to really help out and put them on your particular links and copy and etc. etc. So I think that's fantastic. I just want to get a feeling from the meeting. I knocked together this idea of point 5 as a way of formulating the agenda, because it means that we can discuss all the things in the working groups, and the idea of this meeting is to sort of vote on anything rather than have lots of open discussions. I'm just wondering whether people might find it better to jump to point 6 to get to talk about the 2 things that we need to vote on, so we don't go through all the point 5s, because I just think maybe point 6 might be of more importance just on this one call. Does anybody feel that they don't want to do that, or are we happy to go with that?
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, so Yeah, I mean, we will go back to point 5, but I think that's a work in progress. So, Douglas, can I ask you to and Rob to sort of talk us through point 6 and the various proposals that we need to do a vote on?
Sure. I'll set that up, and then we can discuss the two methods. So this is Telos Improvement Proposal 1A, and it follows on with what we decided about how to change the rewards pool for the founders. And now we made that decision to actually take that action, but we needed time to discuss possibilities. In discussing those possibilities, we have come up with two sort of competing proposals, and this one may go over 10 minutes, but it's very important. So and the way I'd like to handle this is just start by discussing what these two are. I'll let Rob mention method A, and I'll talk about method B. Then we can move on to proposed amendments, the discussion, and finally, hopefully, vote for a method to actually go with. So the approach we're looking at is what we need to look at is that we have that we need to figure out exactly how we are going to record everyone's contributions in a meaningful way. And somehow, and that's fine. We've agreed we're going to do that. We've set up a process. It's already in place. What we need to discover, or what we need to decide, though, is are we going to how we actually turn that into revenue going out to individual participants. So there's two methods. Rob, will you take the lead and talk about method A?
Sure, I'd love to. So what I'm going to do actually is share my screen so I can walk through the proposal. So I'll do that really quick. So is everyone able to see that?
Yeah, I can confirm I can see it.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so as Douglas said, we need some way to quantify objectively contributions so that we can split the bounty pool fairly amongst everyone participating. So method A is a pretty robust way to do that, which also introduces some overhead. Like we would actually have to have someone performing the role of tracking the system, basically a project manager role, or maybe even a team, a small team of people helping. But it's based on the slicing pie methodology. So if you're familiar with that, which is a way you can implement dynamic equity splits for a startup, then you'll be familiar with this. So essentially you track fair market value of all of your contributions, and then you create a ratio with the total contributions of everyone, and then whatever percentage that resolves to is what percentage of the bounty pool you get. So that means we basically have to track hours worked by like an hourly rate, and we convert those into something called slices. And then the slices are kind of normalized. And so we'd have to set rates for like protocol work, social media work, outreach work, PR work, testing work, content development work, design work, and so on. So it's fairly robust where we're setting rates for all the types of inputs that need to be done to make the Telos launch a success. And so you can use time tracking software and project tracking tools. So like I know people were talking about Trello. There's integrations with time tracking software that can kind of reduce the burden here. But basically everyone reports their contributions with justifiable deliverables to the model officer or the working group that would manage this thing. And then that person, basically approves everyone's contributions. So they're the one who has to sniff out any bullshit, basically. Like, oh, that's cute. You had a 200-hour chunk of time that just says did stuff, like that wouldn't fly. It has to be justifiable and reasonable. So anyways, essentially this involves having a project manager or a team of project managers for the project that track this model. We set variable rates depending on the type of work being done. So we'd want to standardize that to a single market. So, it doesn't matter where you are globally. We're all getting paid the same thing for the same type of work. And then, we total all of the contributions of each contributor. And then take a ratio to the overall total contributions. And that's your percentage, and organizations like EOS Detroit, for example, we could say we want all of our contributors to be pooled together into a single founder's balance, perhaps, and then so our company kind of takes ownership of that. So that was another thing I included in here, so we could kind of group contributors. And then another thing this model allows us to do is quantify the value of spending cash to contribute to Telos, whether that's paying for a subscription for productivity tools, paying for an exchange to list, paying for legal stuff related to the setup of the TAO, which that's a whole other discussion, like the strategy for setting up TAO, so I'm not going to go into that right now. But essentially, we can track cash contributions and non-cash contributions, i.e. labor, via this model. And objectively, by the end of the model, we've created an audit log of why everyone deserves the slice they got. So it's kind of like the more robust of the two methods. It has more overhead because it's getting more granular with things. And so for a little context, EOS Detroit is doing this internally for our equity split. We've just set it up, so we're still figuring out how to deal with it, but so far we're using Asana and EverHour to do time tracking because there's an integration there. And then we're basically having everyone self-report, time linked to deliverables or tasks in our project tracking tool. So that's how we're doing it. It does, it requires rigor and discipline to do this model. And since we're decentralized collective, all working towards launching TLOS, like we do have a shared goal, but we may have different styles, and it may be difficult to actually manage this unless we have a couple thoughtful people really doing it. And they would earn slices in the models, so this basically allows us to create the right incentives that anyone can come in, work their ass off for TLOS or contribute cash. And the cash contribution part is a little tricky. What I put in here is that the spend needs to be approved by the working group. So you can't just go spend cash on what you think. You have to go get approval by the working group saying, yeah, we all agree that's a good way, good thing to spend on. So just some thoughts there. To-dos, we need to find or consensus or elect a model officer to manage it, or a team, so like a working group, decide which types of work are needed and the market rates. Douglas said he knows a guy who's actually a consultant in that. So there is an expert we could go to get the standard rates and decide how we want to handle cash spend. And the actual slicing pie model is actually more complicated. This is sort of my stripped down because this is more temporary, like maybe a 3-4 month thing as opposed to multi-year thing like with a startup company. So we don't need it to be as complicated, but that's essentially what method A is. So I'll leave it at there to save time.
Okay, Douglas, are you going to have a chat through method B? The first thing that I think on that is that when you were talking about the cash contributions and getting working groups to verify or formalize, to me, I would see that this group, using the way we talked about point 5 with the working groups reporting to this group, this is where you would have to just the chairman or chairperson of those working groups would have to justify the spend that's been done or the allocations that's been done. So I think we've actually having this group seemingly working reasonably well. It will be quite an easy step to then put that extra piece of structure into that. So I think that's quite positive. Douglas, do you want to take us through point B?
Yes. Rob, would you mind just sharing that screen again, if that's possible?
Sure, I can do that.
Thank you.
No problem.
So method B is a different approach, which is, and before I talk through each point, the big picture is it may be overly complex to try to track in a granular way this whole system across multiple teams, right, and individuals. So, and also there may be more buy-in from the group, which is one of the main reasons we're doing this, if they are allowed to have some authority in this and in voting. So what we would do in method B is, in the similar way, all the contributions we tracked as tasks performed, ideally tied to a Kanban board or something, but not every task is ideally tracked in that way. This also acknowledges that there are some things that work great as individual achievements, and some things that are better tracked as teams. And so the working group, each working group would decide amongst themselves how best to track their own contributors' work. There would be, of course, a method under either proposal for debating or challenging the way that these are tracked with the recording officer. These will be recorded week by week in either method, and so those will be up and available constantly for people to make sure that they're being properly tracked. So once those are tracked by percentage, group, individual, then we follow the whole project all the way through until activation, essentially, at which point we do a freeze or a snapshot, and then all the members will have 2 weeks or some other period that we just determine for all the members to discuss different methods that might work for distributing tokens and turning that into real plans that say person A gets X amount, person B gets Y amount throughout everything. And those, at the end of that time, those will be presented. And then the members will have sort of a primary election to determine which number of plans go forward. For example, let's say we decide to present a total of 5 plans. The idea here is that we don't want to have some outlier plan be brought forward, maybe by a minority member who just joined at the end to sort of game this. We're going to prevent that. So there'll be the primary election of 5 plans. Plans that find themselves very similar to each other may choose to consolidate to reduce the number. And everyone will vote for example, 2 plans, meaning essentially their own and the one they find most reasonable beside their own. And in the end, we will put forward that we will select or narrow the field to whatever we're looking at. Again, any plan that receives under a certain threshold, for example, 10%, won't be presented even if it's one of the top. We want to, again, filter out outliers. Finally, we put forward the slate of actual plans to the membership, and we say these are the 5 plans. It's voted by a smart contract. It's general membership of Telos ownership voting, and everyone votes, and whatever of those 5 acceptable plans is chosen is automatically enacted via smart contract. So that's plan method B.
Douglas, do you mind if I speak on this just for a moment?
Yeah, sure. James is currently the marshal tracking everything. So I think I'd love to hear what you think about the task of actually tracking.
Sure. So personally, I favor method B. I think that we will have transparent tracking, all the groups working in their various disciplines. Another thing is, I think the difference between A and B is in method A, we're putting a lot of the decision making in the hands of a small production group as to how to divide up the rewards. And I think that in method B, we spend a lot more time voting on it as a group. And then lastly, I just want to say that I think that our tracking is maybe not the most important thing that we want to track here. I think that we want to distribute by value of the thing that's accomplished. Something might take a very small amount of time, like if we were able to get Bitfinex on board, that maybe who knows, maybe we got lucky and that takes an hour, but it's a very valuable thing. So I would say that we wouldn't, so tracking the hours on that is not really worthwhile. So I like the idea that the community can vote on the distribution, and I think that it's less overhead, and I think that it tracks by value rather than hours. Is my main points about it.
Okay, thanks for that. We'll just open the floor open. If you want to unmute, then I know that you want to speak. If anyone wants to speak to A or to B, or to ask Rob or James really for any clarification, then please go ahead.
On James' point, if we choose B, someone could still do A and propose that too, because it basically it's a little bit more generic. So if someone wanted to do slicing pie, they could try to manage that model and propose it as one of the plans.
Yeah, let me just say that it's not. I don't think B gets rid of tracking. I think it'll be incumbent upon every group to do a lot of close tracking to what they're working on to make sure their value is represented at the end for the votes.
Yeah. And I think the point that Rob, you're making the point that method B doesn't actually preclude somebody saying, hey, here's the tracking we're going to that we have. We're going to assign value as if we do A, and that becomes one of the voting methodologies that is proposed in the end.
Correct. Yeah, and I mean that would probably get into a rabbit hole. Like you probably, it's like a lot of extra work to maybe get chosen. But I mean, the cool thing is like someone could, so it's not necessarily tying anyone's hands if they wanted to try that.
I personally am for presenting as many, valid ways of trying to slice this up as possible. I think more is probably better. I don't want to. Yeah, I think I think that would be great. I think we could actually apply that as a totally valid methodology and let people vote on that.
I have a question. This is Sukesh from EOS Green. Sorry I couldn't have my camera, but I have a question regarding point 4 here. Like you mentioned that TLOS owners may vote for one plan via a voting smart contract. Like, does it mean like the whole TLOS holders, or like, because it may be like once you present this document or like a proposal to the whole community, maybe the community doesn't want to release these tokens. What happens in that scenario?
Sure, I'll take that. So this is designed specifically so that there are a finite number of votes, of possible votes. So people can vote for one of those. They can choose not to vote, but they cannot. There's none of the above. So one of the plans that makes it through the primary will be enacted.
Okay. Anybody else want to come in on anything?
Yeah. So Roger, EOSUK. So yeah, I just kind of, I mean, clearly we need to take this perhaps out of the meeting and keep talking it through, because they're both quite complicated suggestions. I think that, well, I haven't got my head around them both yet. I don't know about everybody else you might have, but I suppose the things there Sukesh is saying, what if somebody doesn't vote then? So is there kind of like for unlocking the network where there was the 15% minimum required, is there something there that means we have to get a certain amount of votes? Could you sort of explain how that works a little bit?
The way it's worded says after an agreed upon voting period, the contract will award tokens. So there will be 5 separate plans drafted by people in the founders group. Basically, the way it's set up means the founders can't get screwed for doing all of the work, which is good. So yeah, after the period, then the smart contract just picks whatever one got the majority vote, I assume. So no matter what, one of the plans go into action, there's a deadline for that to happen. If someone wants to abstain and just not participate in the vote, they don't have to vote.
Okay, yeah, got it. So, and these are Telos token holders that we're talking about here. Is that correct?
But it also says like a minimum of 10% of the votes is required.
No, can I speak to that? So the 10% minimum is in the primary. So here's the process. Here's what we want to avoid happening. We want to avoid EOS. We want to vote an unnamed group that may have a wall of wallets coming in at the last minute, joining in the last week, and proposing something where they get everything, and all of us who've actually worked on it get nothing, and then somehow having the voting power to do that. I hope that's not the case, but we just want to preclude that. So the 10% means that in the primary, something has to, even if there are only 4 plans put forward, and we have a maximum of 5, they don't all pass through if not enough people here find them passable. And that is one of the reasons why we'd have 2 votes each, because it means you vote for your own plan, not and somebody else. So and your next best plan. The way this is called post activation. So we've already reached 15% activation at this point. It's just a time people can opt in to vote or not opt in to vote. My belief is, game theory wise, how this is going to work is that several plans will be put together. We will sort of sell. An important thing that wasn't mentioned is every plan will have a sponsor or multiple sponsors. So what's very likely to happen is there'll be an initial period where everybody puts together the plans. We kind of look at what they're doing, and then in a typical political process, there is some consolidation and coalition forming. Meaning that if anyone who has a very similar plan, 3 or 4 people have very similar plans, much more likely to coalesce into a single plan, because they won't get, for obvious reasons, I suppose. And so then a small number of plans that actually look at things that have actually very different approaches will probably come out. I think that we can winnow out any plans that are just purely unfair. I don't think that anybody who's involved in this wants anything unfair, but I think what's likely is we'll have very different views of what is actually fair. I think that we will work very collegially as we have throughout this whole process, and in the end, putting it to the voters not only sort of spares us from a lot of hard feelings amongst ourselves, because we still have to, of course, once we launch, the activation is a starting line, not a finish line on this project. And I think that there's a benefit there, and I think there's a real benefit in allowing everyone to have some, in the community themselves, to have some say. So, but the voting as set, as proposed, is designed to make sure, like Rob said, that we don't do all this work, start this up, and somehow get gamed out of it.
Okay, can I just jump in there? We're running up to nearly sort of half an hour on this, so I think we need to move on. I just want to ask one question. There is obviously a lot of concern in the community about this, and we've done this. Does either A or B address the concerns of the community, or which one addresses it best? And will this actually quieten the community down in any fears that are out there?
I personally think that either one will address the needs of the community. We've seen to have pretty good response so far. I think I don't want to rush this, and I'm totally happy to table this until next week. However, I think that if our interest is I don't want to decide on something quickly that's bad, but I think that deciding on something on these things will actually go a long way towards getting the community on board. Personally, I think that the ability to vote at the end is more inclusive, but that's just one opinion. I think that either one will go a long way to address community concerns.
I just wanted to jump in there if I could. If I understand this correctly, there's a bit of a campaigning element that will result, and I would recommend that we implement a standardized process so that people cannot leverage the campaigning aspect to their benefit, so that there is some sort of normalization with regards to how those campaigns are carried out, and everybody's kind of on equal footing.
Okay, as chair, I'm going to see get the feeling of the meeting. Do we want to actually vote? Do we want to take a vote today? And do we want to vote A or B? And then if we vote on either of those, we can still go back and sort of bring it forward again. But if we vote for A or vote for B, do we want to take that vote now? And the way I propose to do that will be to write A or B in the chat. That seems to be how we would go about that, and Phil and myself can try and tally those up. Is that what we want to do? Do we want to go for a vote?
I would recommend that it's premature to vote at this time. I would definitely recommend that we get into some discussions around these and make sure that everybody's clear with regards to their understanding.
Yeah,
we need to put some time towards this.
I would say that the voting mechanism for B is not intended to be complete. If we did vote for A or B right now, it would be with the understanding that there is a lot of finishing work to do for B.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it seems that method B seems the more suitable plan, because it could include method A as part of it, but it does sort of move a lot of the detail to be worked out further down the road as well. I think it just needs more discussion, but it's looking like method B would be the most suitable one. But I don't think we want to vote on it today either.
Why don't we
I think we've accomplished a lot. I'm sorry, Mark.
I was just going to say, why don't we give ourselves a timeline to educate ourselves with regards to the ramifications of both of these proposals, and then we know that at a certain point we're going to make a decision.
Okay, that sounds like a pretty reasonable sort of compromise to me. And the fact that we've got the working group set up, it means that this just doesn't go away into the ether. It means that we need to make sure that the working group, who is going to be dealing with this, is tasked to do it. And just Douglas or Rob, do you just want to come in and which working group would be working on this?
Yep, there's a bounty-system channel that is its own working group, but I think there's a couple working groups actually that are relevant. There's also a work_group_tracking channel. So work group tracking, I think, is going to be the work group that actually project manages, like sort of continually tracks contributions in some fashion. And bounty system was where we were discussing this tip one. And now we have a tip channel as well. So maybe what we should do is take all discussion of all tips to the tip channel. I don't know yet, but there's basically 3 places.
Okay.
Can I?
Yeah, go on.
I was going to say, it's starting to get a bit hectic, isn't it, in Keybase? I think this being such an important thing should stay in the bounty system channel until we've solved it. And then, as Rob says, the work group tracking channel is the one that actually does the work of tracking all of the time and rewards, etc.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay,
then. Bounty system channel, please.
Can I just jump in here for a second too? Douglas, if you could, when you get a second, just give permission to everybody to view option B. It says I need permission. I can't see it.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, he's been having some trouble with that. We'll work that out.
Okay. I propose, since it looks like we're going to wait, why don't we repost that? They're all posted. By the way, these on the Google Drive are all reposts I did last night because I realized that there's no pinning in Keybase, so the things I had posted earlier were just disappearing into the ether. So we'll find a better way. We'll actually pin them in tips. And Rob actually had an excellent suggestion previously about format for tips, and we should be actually probably having those be in the GitHub. And so he's gonna maybe suggest a standardization of that. It's been fairly ad hoc up to date, and I believe I have not set an ideal example for those just out of expediency. So we will improve that. And that's my bad, but we'll just get better about that.
I just wanted to jump in here again with regards to channels. Yeah, we definitely need to be very mindful. We do not want to create any channels that do not serve a very distinct purpose. The purpose of the tips channel is really like a resource channel. It's not so much about the detailed discussions, like in the case that would happen in the bounty system. It's more about a resource where people can find the listing of those tips and then discuss specifically in and around those tips. But because the bounty system is such a unique and pivotal piece, it's got its own channel, so to speak.
Okay, so am I okay to move us on? And I'm going to suggest that the bounty channel take this up and run with it, and next week come back under the way we'll structure the agendas, and we'll have these posted to discuss next week, and we'll just keep the chat going in Keybase. Has anybody got a problem with that? I'm going to move on. Unless anyone jumps in and shouts me down, that's what I'm going to do. So the next point on the agenda is point 7, which was the tips channel. Are we going to be able to talk to that, Douglas? Or Rob?
Yes, I hope we can. So this is tips 7, and I believe I've just made this public. This is an approach where we actually talk about the community rewards pool. Again, we may not get all the way through this. Let me give us the broad strokes of this. We need to discuss a few things. First of all, we need to discuss the size of the pool. I would suggest that we make it 600,000 TLOS, which is 10% of the founders reward pool. This would be set up between a number of different subgroups. For example, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Medium, Steemit, Bitcoin Talk. They would be set up in different ways, different amounts. For example, we may assign 25% to YouTube, 25% to Twitter, 10% to Reddit, something like that. And then we would have a very specific metric in each specific group. So, for example, YouTube would be the total number of minutes watched. So the way this would work is anyone who wants to make a contribution in the terms of in the community sense, usually that means social media, would sign up with us. We would have a process where they'd sign up, and this would be right on the main Telos Foundation webpage. People could sign up by simply sending us their channel and channels they want to participate in. They would post any amount of media, and then at the end, we would take each pool and we would say, for example, this is the YouTube pool. We're going to look at each piece of media, each contributor, and just look at total number of minutes viewed, and that each participant's each participant's number of minutes viewed over the total number of minutes viewed in that group equals their share of the sub pool. Roger?
Yeah, sorry. Some people are having difficulty opening the document. Could we just share it? Or could Rob share the document on screen share, and then everyone can see it? And
so someone in YouTube just said that when I screen share, because I'm live streaming, it messes up the video. So if someone else can share, we'll have to split that responsibility so the stream doesn't get messed up.
Do you want me to try? Do you want me to try and do that? Have I got necessary privileges?
Yeah, that'd be great. You should be able to.
Let's try that then. Sorry, Douglas. Please carry on while I try and work that out.
Okay, thank you. My guess is we're just going to have a discussion of this and not fully vote. So it may not be as bad. I'll get this up a little better for the next version. So the idea is that there's subpools. Everybody every participant has registered with us. They have made it clear what they're trying to do, and these must be each piece of material must link to some official Telos Foundation channel, either the website or a chat group or whatever. And then at the end, we snapshot it and we just figure out what each participant's piece of the pool actually is.
Okay, so am I right in thinking, I've not read the document, but I'm right in thinking that the key number here is the percentage of TLOS that we're going to actually throw out, because at the end of this meeting, we could actually put out something to the community to say that we're working on this, but this is available. Is that something that everyone's happy with the figure that Douglas spoke about?
I personally think that if we can arrive at a number and then decide to fully arrive at determine that we will, in fact, like the other one, have a full process ratified by next week, I think that would be a fine development. I think people would like to know how much that is.
Sounds good. I really like this idea. The more we can incentivize the community to help and share in the bounty, the better. I'd like to see one of the subpools be exchange outreach. I mentioned this earlier, but if you looked at the EOS DAC campaign, when they were trying to get listed on exchanges, they basically created a raffle system where anyone from the community in Telegram that submitted could earn some of the tokens. So we could definitely do an exchange outreach gamification thing if we use a subpool for that. So that's my only input. Overall, I think the whole idea is great.
Am I sharing?
Yeah, I agree. So
yes, you are.
One suggestion, guys. So one suggestion is that I think this is very important. Essentially, the success of Telos, a lot of it is going to depending on people know about us, and I think the community part is actually a very big part. I personally think that 1/10 of the pool comparing to the founder reward pool, it might be a little bit smaller. I think that maybe something like 1 million Telos would be more encouraging just for the community members. But I don't know like what specific number would be good. I think that marketing and letting people know about us is a very important task. And I wish that as many people could be involved as possible.
I support that. In fact, there were two numbers that first came to mind for this, and one was 600,000 and one was 1 million. So I think that's great. I think if we do look at the pools, we might want to also look if this is America Europe centric and maybe is leaving out things like WeChat or Weibo or something like that, or other things that, or Kakao Talk in Korea, or other specific markets that are huge but just aren't representative for us right now, because at the moment, not long term, but at the moment we do seem to be a little Europe, North America and Europe centric in our membership. So I think it'd be good to open up our thinking about that as well.
I think that there can be multiple stages to this. Like, these can actually turn into worker proposals that are ongoing with regards to folks supporting the community. This is kind of a pre-launch, contribution. So these can certainly manifest as worker proposals after the fact. And then the other side of this is that we need to kind of rebalance these, much like a fund would rebalance what they carry with regards to their impact and their effectiveness. So there needs to be some level of measurement by which we can determine the effectiveness of these efforts.
Okay, I'm just going to jump in, because I'm sort of going to say that the idea of these calls is for us to obviously discuss things, but sort of try and vote on key issues. So if we could just take this back to the working group, and next week, now these are taking shape, next week if we could have something really quite concrete, or a little bit more concrete to vote on, then I think that would be quite good, because we can't limit this discussion to 10 minutes, and I'm not sure we're ever going to come to a complete agreement with everybody having enough education to make a point.
Can I ask Jim if we could do a quick straw poll to see if people feel that we could select a number? There have been 2 proposed. Is that something people feel that we could vote on, or is that premature as well?
I think that it would be really good to have a number.
Sorry, I was just saying I'd second the million, and we're up to date on that. I think it's a great idea.
I think we should give ourselves a week, as we discussed with regards to the other issue, and then agree to come back and actually make an educated decision around this.
So shall we have a vote? I guess should we have a vote on whether we vote on that or not?
I would say I would like to establish, if I can, that we always allow proposals to bake for 1 week. It's just the right thing to do if someone misses the call. So that's what I would like to motion to do. But we can get rough consensus offline in Keybase and the other channels, so that when it comes time to vote, we're like, oh yeah, we're all on the same page.
Roger, can I ask you? Sorry, Rob. Roger, can I ask you to unshare your screen so we go back to the view, please? Thank you. On the idea of voting on a vote, I'm going to say that we're not going to vote on whether we're going to have a vote or not. I think that the role of the chair can get the idea of get the feeling of the meeting, and I think with Rob's last contribution about having the idea for something to debate for a week, I'm going to say that we shouldn't have a vote on whether we should vote or not, and that we should go with Mark's idea of let's come back with some proposals with a yes, no on 1 million or 600,000 or whatever next week, and we move this forward. Unless anyone's really unhappy with that, I'm going to take
I second that.
Yeah, that great solution.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm getting a general consensus on that, so I'm going to be a bit of a bully and move this forward, guys. I'm trying to look at the chat as well, but my glasses aren't very good, and I need a bigger screen, Roger. Roger, I need a bigger screen. Bigger computer, please. So I'm just going to sort of again, we've got Douglas on point 8. If you want to crack on.
Okay, thank you so much. So this last one, I think, let's just assume that we're going to introduce this and discuss it later. This is called Telos Improvement Proposal 3. It's a draft, and it's a concept that I'd like to, I think it's important to just introduce here. And that is currently in the white paper, the method for how the Telos Foundation voting tokens, which is how the DAO for the Telos Foundation is governed, this is not my best idea on reflection, is basically secret membership and secret voting. The rationale for that was, I believe that there will be, that in the hyper politicized environment of block producer voting, there are likely to be certain decisions that are for the good of the network, that are apolitical, but that people may vote differently if their vote is secret ballot versus being open. So I initially thought of that. In light of what we've heard for the community, my hope is to get ahead of this and say, and also I recently wrote something about transparency being one of what I hope is our core principles here at Telos. And this is so out of line with that I thought, let's get ahead of it. Let's take that secrecy away. And in this, and I'll just introduce this, and we can all look at it and move on and discuss it in a week. But I'm proposing this tip to say, rather than secret membership and secret voting, we should either do public membership, so everyone knows who those voters are. Those voters are drawn from basically people working in this group, and of which of course is an open membership group. And then later we on an ongoing basis, regularly every 6 months, every year, every quarter, we add new people who are involved. The idea is to create a membership that care and have shown a demonstrated commitment to the Telos network. Let them vote whether we have governors for the Telos Foundation, how we work on grants and things like that. So I am proposing that we make the membership non-secret, initially drawn from members of this group, roughly based on their contributions. And then in the future, drawn from all contributors, whether in or out of this group, on an ongoing basis. And there is a question there about whether secret voting. So secret voting under my initial proposal would be maintained by not associating people's individuals' names with the Telos address that holds their voting tokens. An alternate proposal included is for discussion is whether we should simply have purely transparent membership and voting by associating those addresses. The negative there is it takes away the possibility for secret ballot. And my initial proposal is that the middle ground is probably best, but we can discuss that over the next week. I just wanted to officially introduce this so that we can stay ahead of it and let the community know before, now that we've hopefully addressed the first issue, that I think this is the second issue that may potentially get friction, and I'd just like to stay ahead of it. So that's what tip 3 is about.
Okay, thanks, Douglas. What I'm going to say is that obviously we had a slight issue getting the agenda out late, and I will make sure I deal with that straight away this week. And because I think people struggle to find the document, I think we'll just sort of bounce this to the next meeting. Can I just ask you which channel this would be discussed on, because I can then go to that chair to get some updates?
I think that somebody proposed it might have been Rob that we or Mark. I think actually it was Mark that we just post all tips in the tip channel, and soon they will also be publicly available on the GitHub for everyone. And this would be, I think this would be discussed in governance. I think that this tends to be a governance issue.
Okay, then. So let's get the governance guys to work that up and make sure that we've got someone to talk to that on the call next week. And my proposal is that that we will get people to sort of fill in the agenda items with documents, and if we start it earlier, we can make sure that we've got everything open and sorted out. So issue point 9 is the Telos tracker. I was just going to say that I don't know whether we want to. The only reason that was on there was to keep it high profile, just to make sure that we're checking that, and that I don't know whether that's something that the social media channels are going to take over looking. But again, I just think we need to make sure that we're aware that if you see anything, we put it on there and that we get it dealt with.
I'd like to interject really quick, Jim, and just say, I don't know if you saw that I added another number 9, and it's really fast.
I missed that, but go on, Rob.
Okay, so I just motion that we standardize the Telos improvement proposals to the Telos Foundation GitHub. So we need someone to own that. I think on the Good Block side that has access to the Telos Foundation GitHub. Basically, we need to add anyone actively drafting tips to that GitHub so we can create a new repository to store all of the tips in a standard format. That way everyone knows where to look. It's open source and versioned, and it's under the Telos Foundation GitHub org. That's a pretty standard way to handle these in other communities like Ethereum, BitShares, and Bitcoin, so we might as well, I think it's good to standardize on that.
I totally support that, and that's what I was alluding to before. So why don't James and I take on ensuring that everybody's available there. If anybody does not have access to the GitHub, mention it to us or mention it in the tips. I think it's worthwhile to it may still be worthwhile to post this in the tips. What do you think about that, Rob? Or should we just post a link in the tips to the GitHub?
I think if people are looking to talk about tips or even meta tips on writing tips on tips, right? That would be a good thing for the tip channel. But we can, like you said, reference the GitHub tip repo once it's created from that channel too.
Okay, so we'll take on opening that up, and I fully support that. I'll second that heartily.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just trying to look at the ever moving agenda. I think we've got a point 10. I've got a point 10, which is choosing tools and a uniform toolkit. Is that something that someone wants to talk to?
Yeah, I injected that in there just simply because some of us are realizing that we need tools that go beyond what we might have already adopted. So some folks have been looking at task management tools, but the key here is that we universally choose these tools so that we not only have competency and can support each other in this, but everybody knows, where to find this information, and we know what our abilities are with regards to tracking these things. So some of the teams have adopted Trello. Obviously, some folks are using Google Docs. I added a few other things here that are, optional, like calendars. I don't think we need to really discuss whether we need these right now, but the point is we don't want to have a fragmented toolkit. We essentially want to make a communal decision as to why we're adopting what we're adopting.
Okay, we'll join in on that.
I'd just like to say I second the standardization of perhaps Trello. It sounds like people are already using Trello in the TLOS contributors community. So no need to go against the grain. It's industry standard. We can argue what Trello or Jira or Asana all day, but the reality is we just need to use something, and it'll be more useful if we all buy into the same thing. So I would suggest that we all of the working groups use the same Trello with separate boards or however Trello is organized. And just as we've all decided to use Keybase for direct chat comms, Keybase doesn't serve well for project management, so we should have a tool for that. So the trick is to have the minimum amount of tools that allow us to work effectively. And Trello adopting Trello would be useful. And then perhaps the last thing is a knowledge base. We use a knowledge base internally to put static stuff. So a lot of static, document collaboration moves there. So when it's like, okay, we've drawn up something really good, let's move that into a place it can live more longer term. I don't know if we need that since this working group's going to be short-lived, a few 3 to 6 months probably, as opposed to years and years. So maybe we don't need to go that far, but I know that knowledge bases really help me to organize teams. So that'd be my suggestion, is that we just go with the flow on some of this stuff as long as they're sane enough decisions instead of debating the semantics of each.
Yeah, I mean, let's unless anybody, Sukish, do you want to join in?
Yeah, I was just about the knowledge base. We can probably use GitHub wiki articles. We can probably create wiki articles in the GitHub and have them in the repository and give access to everyone for the repository, like similar to the tip suggestions.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Sukesh. Then, in that way, we don't have yet another tool.
I'm getting the feeling that the idea that we still happy to use for the working groups and the chairs to use Trello? Am I still getting that?
Yeah, I would just like to say that we want a simple tool. We've already got some momentum with regards to Trello, but I would also say that when we use these tools, we need to take advantage of the features that they have. So please, when folks add stuff to a part in Trello, make sure that you utilize as much of the features that are there, not all of them unnecessarily, but don't just put like the name of something there that gives us no additional value from a spreadsheet. Use those features, use the checklists, use the tags, use the description, add the links so that everybody sees the value of moving to those tools.
Okay, that sounds pretty good.
Yes, actually, sorry to speak over you, but I think it's the responsibility of each chairs to make sure that everyone in the team is following the standards and maybe just help them to get to there.
I think that's a great suggestion, and if we align this with tracking, whichever method we end up doing, if we say that the Trello tasks will be one of the major forms of tracking task completion, hopefully that will get people really good about documenting their work.
Yeah, I think what's coming loud and clear to me is that the chairs of the working groups are going to be playing an increasing role, and I think if we are tasking them to be using Trello and, like Mark says, use the features, I think they're the people who are going to be talking to this meeting and driving the points on those groups. And I think I want to sort of draw this one to a close now and suggest that if we can, if Phil can make a note that we've requested that the chairs use Trello and other, and we'll come back to having this on the agenda next week just to make sure that we're covering all the bases on the particular tools that we want to use. Yeah, Roger.
Just saying about, we've obviously skipped over point 5, and that kind of leads us quite nicely back to it, doesn't it? It's about how we're going to select the chairs for each of the working groups.
Yeah, I mean, the way I saw the post that Douglas made, it was almost that the working groups were, people who have sort of self-selected for the working groups, we're going to select their own chair, and that's sort of like something sort of decentralised, which those subsections we're going to do. That was my feeling on it. I don't know whether anybody else has got any views.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously there's multiple groups that people could be involved in. Myself, obviously thinking about myself mainly, as most people do. But how do we decide? Should each of us only look to chair one group, or do we think it's acceptable to chair on more than one group? And also, I'd suggested that we have co-chairs that are in different time zones for each group, so that each group can kind of keep functioning whilst the chair is asleep and the co-chair is asleep, and vice versa. That was just my thoughts on it.
We had a little bit of discussion about this at our office at Good Block, and we also felt it would be ideal if there was if nobody chaired more than one group, unless it was a co-chair situation. So Roger, I remember we spoke about this. On reflection, I think with the size of our group, that getting you know and typical co-chairs may be challenging, and also that the level of speed for these things, except for things like testnet, are probably not such that that may be a major consideration. James has done a good job in his tracking of pulling together a list of everyone we have. I think it might be worthwhile just going down. I don't know if James is willing to do that. I have these as well. He's forwarded these to me. But it'd be nice to just go down the list, mention who are the chairs, so that we can see where repetition happens. For example, I know that Roger, you and Beth actually did do the opposite hemisphere co-chair in two groups. You're there in two groups, but you're co-chairs. I think that's fine. James, would somebody be willing to just go down the list and talk about who is the chair of each group? Or alternatively, Jim, you could just go down the list and
I'm happy to do it. I have it here, and I've collected everything. This is a document that I've been working on by going through the Keybase channels and going through the work groups and just figuring out who's volunteered for what. I just got it together in the day yesterday. There's still more changes to be done, and I think, though, once I get this shared out, which will be today, I think it'll be obvious to everybody where we need to add chairs and what work needs to be done. I think that it is, personally, I think it's possible someone could chair or at least co-chair more than one group, but I would say probably about two is probably the limit personally, because I just think there's a lot of work to be done here. So let me just go through the work groups and then what I have listed generally for leads. So the first group is the bounty system. We don't specifically have a lead for that. We can talk more about that later, but right now we don't have one on that one. For code generation, we actually have Peter Boo as lead on that, and I've tried to mention to these on all the individual channels, by the way. So if you look in Keybase, I tried to mention who these people are already. Code testing, I got Marlon Williams as the lead. DApps outreach, I have Justin Guidici. As it says, he's a co-lead. I think he volunteered for a co-lead. I don't know that we have another lead for DApps outreach right now. Exchange outreach, I have Beth Farnham and Roger Davies as co-leads on that. For external comms, I have Beth and Roger again as co-leads on that one. On governance, I marked Douglas as lead on this one. Again, probably need a co-lead on that. Network maintenance, we have three people, JT, Jesse, and Jerry are all the three J's of team leadership on that one. On security, we have Azad as lead. I think I just volunteered him for that. So again, this is all just, this is a starting point for all of these. Social media, I have Beth Farnham right now as lead on that. Good Block. Translations, I have Juiced from Ketten as the lead. It's really important, especially on this one, that we have somebody who can collect the translations and keep track of them. It's going to be important. And for work group tracking, which is maintaining this spreadsheet and keep track of input, I have myself as the lead on that.
I have two suggestions that I'd love to hear people's opinions on. One is that we actually append the name of the lead to the channel name, so it's very evident who's the current lead, and we can change that. And the second is that we keep a spreadsheet where people can reference who's the lead and who's the co-lead of each channel.
Yeah, it's this spreadsheet, which I have will be public, like I said, as of today. It'll mark who's the lead on it, so everybody will have an idea. But I agree that marking it on the channels, the Keybase channels, would be beneficial as well.
Can I just jump in a second? The meetings channel wasn't mentioned on your list, James. And my feeling is that whoever is the chair of these meetings should be the lead on that channel, because it's where you would do all your admin. So if I get voted out or whatever, or I'm not the chair, then I don't want necessarily my name to be against it. But I think that the lead on that channel should be the person who chairs this meeting.
Okay, sorry. I didn't have meetings as a particular work group because I didn't think of it as a work group. But you're right. I'll add that in there, and then we'll have you as lead there.
Or the chair of the meeting is lead. But yeah, me. Okay, that's fine.
Oh, stop it, Jim. It's you.
Well, I'm blowing my own trumpet, Douglas. You know what I mean?
I think you are a natural fit. I think that I'd propose that unless somebody has a problem, you stop having to say me or anybody else. You just do it.
Fair enough. I am a bit conscious that I just sort of jumped into it. So, but I'll just keep going until anyone tells me to stop. That's maybe the best way of doing it. Well, looking at this, we're up against the time limit. Well, I've gone over by 6 minutes. So I propose that we call it a day, and hopefully Rob can get this uploaded to the correct channels, and we can follow the comments closely. If I could ask people to follow the comments closely, and if there's anything that you are really sort of skilled on and can reply to people in the community. We did have the odd strange comment last time it was out. If we can be prompt on that, that'll be really, really helpful. And yeah, just thanks a lot, guys, and congratulations for a meeting that looked like a meeting, which I think some other people don't quite manage. But you know, hey, what can I say? So yeah, thanks everybody.
Well done, Jim. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. You can find the link on YouTube for the recording. I didn't actually record this time. It's just streamed directly to YouTube, so that'll be available for reference.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks.
No problem.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
See you next week.
Bye, guys.